Good evening, everyone, and thanks to Deb Heisler and the Arizona Yacht Club for inviting us to tell you about our part-time cruising life in the Sea of Cortez. This is a recast of our August 2020 live Zoom presentation that was compromised by low bandwidth and garbled audio transmission. Based on questions posed during the original talk, we've modified a few slides and added some extra information that appears towards the end. Teresa and I bought our first sailboat, a Catalina 22, in 1988, and shortly thereafter joined the Arizona Yacht Club. A few more years passed before we traded up 3 important feet to a Catalina 25. We took both those tiny cruisers to all but one of the 7 Channel Islands in California, and from San Carlos to Baja a number of times. After I retired in 2005, we purchased a caliber 35 long-range cruiser in Annapolis, Maryland, and had her transported by truck across country to Mexico, where she is kept year-round in San Carlos, Sonora. For each of the past 15 years, we've been very fortunate to be able to spend 4 or 5 months living on our sailboat and exploring the Sea of Cortez. From our home port of Marina San Carlos, we've sailed north to Bahia de Los Angeles, south to La Paz in Baja California Sur, and many points in between. We're not going to visit all those locations in this presentation. Instead, we'll focus on the San Carlos area, cross the sea to Santa Rosalia and Bahia Concepcion, and then work our way along the Baja Peninsula to La Paz. We will save some of the other destinations for you to explore on your own. This slide shows us overlooking Caleta de Sabanico, a popular anchorage on the Baja Peninsula about 100 nautical miles and 20 hours south of San Carlos. Many of you have been to San Carlos, but for those who haven't, it's in Sonora, Mexico, about 440 miles from Phoenix and 260 miles south of the border. It takes us about 9 hours to drive there. The roads are mostly divided highway now and very good. There are 4 toll booths along the way with fees totaling about 250 pesos, which is currently about $12 US. In early 2020, Mexico opened a brand new bypass looping around the east side of Hermosillo. It really doesn't save many miles, but it removes the hassle of city traffic, a big plus whether or not you are trailering a boat. We note that it's prudent to complete the Sonoran leg of your trip in daylight hours. There are 2 full-service marinas in the San Carlos area. There's Marina San Carlos, where we keep our boat, and Marina Real, about 5 miles to the north. Liveaboard facilities in both marinas, that is, the showers and toilets, are okay, but nothing to rave about. Both also offer secure dry storage at reasonable prices during the summer heat and hurricane seasons. Both have work yards where owners can work on their boats or have the marina workers do bottom jobs and repairs. We prefer Marina San Carlos because it's within walking distance of restaurants, banks, grocery stores, and entertainment. Many cruisers take advantage of haul-out and storage facilities in the Guaymas harbor about 10 to 12 miles away. Local marine stores sell hardware, rigging supplies, paint, etc., but don't expect to find the exact part you might require for failed equipment. Most cruisers end up bringing as much as they can with them at the beginning of each season. Dry storage in Marina Seca is about a half-mile inland from the water and marina slips. Larger monohulls are launched with hydraulic trailers on a ramp outside the marina office. Smaller craft can be launched there on your own trailers. If you prefer not to dunk your trailer in salt water, the marina also has a crane. The marina building also houses several restaurants and the San Carlos Yacht Club, where AYC and Tucson Sailing Club members enjoy reciprocal privileges, discounts for dinner, and a first-run movie once a week. Before we get into the water, here's a bit about our sailboat. Pochteca was named after the long-distance Aztec traders at the time of Montezuma. Calibers were designed by Michael and George McCreary and built in Clearwater, Florida from the late 80s through 2008. Ours is equipped with in-mast mainsail furling, a staysail, and 120% Genoa. The LRC in the name is short for long-range cruiser. With a small diesel, plenty of fuel, water, and solar panels, we can comfortably avoid marina facilities for a month or more.
We usually take a slip on B-Dock among a small group of liveaboards and transients getting their boats ready for trips across to Baja or further down the Mexican mainland coast to Mazatlan, Puerto Vallarta, or Barra de Navidad. San Carlos is growing by leaps and bounds. You can see the Marina Terra Hotel and condos in the background. Another modern hotel was finished last year, and a new one is currently under construction across the street from Marina Terra. The marina itself is ringed by a malecon with a couple of yacht brokerages, fishing charter companies, and several restaurants. Just outside the marina and beyond the fuel dock is Bahia San Carlos and the landmark peak, which has been renamed Tetacawi. Decades ago, the peak was known to us by its more colorful moniker, Las Tetas de Cabra. It rises more than 1,000 feet above the bay and is a landmark that can be seen from a long way offshore. Afternoon winds in San Carlos blow either up or down the coastline, generally blowing from the northwest during the cooler months and the southeast the rest of the year. Longtime AYC member Al Lehman once told us his plan when leaving Bahia San Carlos was to stay flexible and put the wind on your stern quarter. That way at least one of the legs of the trip will have favorable wind. Fortunately, there are good anchorages both north and south of San Carlos, and if you only have a couple of days or a week to spend in the area, there are a number of them within 30 or 40 miles. This Google Earth image shows a few of our favorites along the coast. Jerry Cunningham's Cruising Guide to San Carlos is an excellent resource for these and many more. Be sure to look at our resources handout that is part of this presentation. Many anchorages offer hikes ashore and very good protection from prevailing winds. Besides being a great place to explore, they provide an essential proving ground for your crew and boat before venturing farther offshore. Martini Cove is definitely one of our favorites. It's just half an hour from the marina, and it's popular with small tour boats and Mexican families in the afternoons. But as the sun begins to go down, most of them head back to the marina. So this usually leaves us all alone in $1 million anchorage with great holding ground in 16 feet of depth. It provides excellent protection from north winds during the winter months. Dramatic desert cliffs and sonita and giant cardone cacti surround this special cove.
Another favorite anchorage of ours is this double-bighted cove about 12 miles south of San Carlos on the Guaymas headland. Ensenada El Caracito is a secret gem that many of our cruising friends don't know about. Like so many coves in the Sea of Cortez, it's hard to spot from offshore unless you know it's actually there. During AYC General Membership meeting many seasons ago, Jerry Cunningham showed this picture of Ensenada El Caracito, but was hesitant to say exactly where it was located. He wanted people to discover it on their own and didn't want to advertise its location. Caracito is a great place to spend a couple of nights if the wind is right. There's a colorful rock painting of the Virgin of Guadalupe on the hills above the anchorage, and if you hike to the ridge to the north, there's a spectacular view of the Guaymas town and harbor. Bahia San Pedro is undoubtedly the most popular destination for cruisers out of San Carlos. It's about 4 or 5 hours to the north. This spacious cove has room for many boats to swing, and there's good wind protection from either direction. Yet during the winter and early spring, it's often empty except for panga fishermen or an occasional shrimp boat taking refuge from a norther. Great hiking is found ashore along the wide sandy beaches and north to adjacent palm-studded coves. Ashore, there are piles of pink murex shells left by local fishermen. The piles are so large that they can be seen on satellite images. If you're headed across the Sea to Baja, Bahia San Pedro is a great jumping off point as it puts northerly wind on your beam during the winter or early. If you are lucky enough to have a week or two, a trip across the Sea of Cortez to Baja might be of interest. Although it looks close on the chart, it's still 75 nautical miles away from San Carlos. And at 5 knots, a crossing is likely to require more than 15 hours. Fortunately, currents are not a serious problem in this region of the sea, perhaps a half knot or so during big monthly tide events. But strong winds and unruly seas can make a crossing downright dangerous at times. We like to make the trip when winds are forecast to be less than 15 knots, seas less than 1 meter, and a period between waves of 10 seconds or more. Remember, you'll be out of sight of land for almost 50% of the time, so GPS and reasonable navigation skills are required. Please take note that there are serious discrepancies between real and charted coordinates of some shorelines, islands, and hazards in the Gulf of California. These errors can be as large as 1 nautical mile because official U.S. government surveys of the area were performed more than a century ago, and small-scale charts have not been updated with more precise coordinates. Even some modern software packages still have this problem today, although the larger scale charts of major Mexican seaports like Guaymas, Topolobampo, and La Paz are up to date. The navigation software we use, OpenCPN, eliminates the problem for cruisers by showing boat position directly on georeferenced satellite imagery. We'll discuss OpenCPN software more towards the end of this presentation. On your way to Santa Rosalia, you'll likely take a route between Islas Tortuga and San Marcos. It was here in deep water about 10 years ago that we had our very own Moby Dick moment. We had seen distinctive spouts of sperm whales off our starboard stern, but to have 3 appear suddenly and on a collision course with our beam caught us completely off guard. Now, this was a period when there were huge numbers of large Humboldt squid in the sea, and we suspect that the toothed whales were feeding on them. Humpbacks have been the most common whales that we've encountered over the past 5 or 6 years. Other whales that we've seen include orcas, fins, blue, and short-fin pilot whales. Gray whales frequent the Pacific side of Baja, but are relatively uncommon where we cruise in the Central Sea. This is a satellite view of Isla San Marcos. The big scar at the southern end of the island is a giant surface gypsum mining operation. Medium-sized freighters ply the Gulf and load ore from a ramshackle dock on the southwest corner of the island. There's also a small village there where families of the miners seem to spend most of their day just sweeping the fine white gypsum dust out of their houses. Although the large cove at the south end of the island looks like good shelter from winter northerlies, the dust blowing from the island can make it very unpleasant. However, several good anchorages can be found at the northwest corner of the island. When the weather is settled, we often spend a couple of nights anchored in the northwest corner of San Marcos before continuing on to Santa Rosalia. There are large patches of sand that provide good anchor holding ground. The shoreline is dotted with impressive sea caves that are worth exploring. There's even one that you can dinghy through to a tiny beach on the other side. Occasionally, panga fishermen will offer to sell us yellowtail there, but we have found that fishing for cabria and pargo has been good for us on the rocky bottom. The town and harbor of Santa Rosalia lies an hour or so northwest of Isla San Marcos. The rock breakwater provides protection from wind and waves and safe harbor for local fishermen. There's a pier for the passenger and ferry freight that makes 3 weekly runs to Guaymas. The fauna tour marina in the harbor now provides good slips with water and electricity. It has Wi-Fi, showers, and fuel. It's a good place to tie up while exploring the town for 3 or 4 days, and the rates are very reasonable. The old marina at Santa Rosalia was always a favorite among cruisers who tied up at the classic wooden docks or anchored in the space beyond. In 2009, however, rainfall and flash flooding during Hurricane Jimena devastated the town, destroyed the dock, and several of the sailboats. It's still not a good idea to anchor in the harbor due to the many hidden hazards and cables that remain behind.
Santa Rosalia is arguably the most unique town in Baja. This copper mining town was founded in the late 1800s by the French and has seen a tremendous resurgence in mining activity over the past decade. The architecture doesn't bear any resemblance to buildings seen elsewhere in Mexico. Notably, there's a metal church in town called Iglesia de Santa Barbara, which is reported to have been designed by Gustave Eiffel of Eiffel Tower fame. Most of the residences and shops along the narrow streets are wooden, with balconies and porches on the street side. There's also a very interesting mining museum and some huge abandoned generating facilities that are really awesome to explore. High on our list after a week or more of boat galley food is some of the local delicacies in Santa Rosalia. And these include deep-fried hot dogs that are found at one of the street vendors near the church, as well as ice cream shops and fried chicken restaurants. There are some very interesting and extensive cemeteries high on the hills to the south of the town, where thousands of mine workers are interred. Sailing south from Santa Rosalia, Bahia Concepcion is a day or two away. It is one of the most idyllic destinations in all of the Sea of Cortez. Not surprisingly, it's also one of the places where cruisers from San Carlos head to when they only have a week or so to play with. Some 20 miles in length, the bay reminds us of lake sailing in Arizona. This picture is from a hiking trail far above Burro Cove. Bahia Concepcion offers a laid-back environment to a number of expats that live a simpler life ashore. Occasionally, whale sharks cruise by boats at anchor, and restaurants offer welcome Mexican fare in several of the larger coves.
If you have the time, plan on sailing down to La Paz. As the crow flies, La Paz is only 240 nautical miles due south of San Carlos. A leisurely cruise typically takes us 2 or 3 weeks because we stop at a number of protected anchorages along the way, moving on only when the mood strikes us and when the weather portends good sailing. The western side of the sea has so many great anchorages, it's difficult to say which are our favorites. We almost always stop in San Juanico, Puerto Balandra, Isla Coronado, Timbabichi, Agua Verde, The Hook, Partida, and more. This year we added a few places we hadn't visited in years, like the abandoned saltworks and crumbled docks at Bahia Salinas on Isla Carmen, shown on this slide. Salinas is now the headquarters for guided hunts for desert bighorn sheep, which are abundant on the island. We also stopped at the very tranquil Honeymoon Cove on Isla Danzante, just east of Puerto Escondido. It doesn't get much better than this. This year we dropped a hook at 11 different anchorages on our way to La Paz. It's impossible to do them all justice in such a short presentation. We enjoyed every one, but it always feels good to arrive in La Paz where the weather is very pleasant during the cruising season. Air temperatures in La Paz average 10 degrees warmer than Phoenix in the winter and spring, and 4 degrees warmer than San Carlos. While in La Paz, we usually stay at Marina de La Paz. It's a base for many liveaboards and hosts dozens of Baja transients each fall. It's within convenient walking distance to the Malecon and town center. There are several other marinas, workyards, and storage facilities in the area, but we think the amenities and services provided by the Schroyer family at Marina de La Paz are simply the best in the sea. After weeks on the boat, the local ice cream shops and restaurants are very tempting destinations. The marina is typically full in early March when we arrive. But the marina staff always seems to find room for us in a side tie position. In this instance, next to Carlos Slim's mega yacht, O-Star. We then move to an interior slip after a short time. The Dockside Cafe at the marina is a convenient amenity when we don't feel like walking to one of our other favorite restaurants. Marina de La Paz is ahead of the curve. They have a large-scale desalination system that provides the best water we have found anywhere in Mexico. The shower and bathroom facilities are first-rate. It is also the permanent home of the Club Cruceros de La Paz, a cruisers club that's a focal point for many visiting sailors and hosts Bay Fest during April in most years. As it turns out, Marina de La Paz was one of the best places for us to be in 2020 as the coronavirus pandemic started to wreak havoc across the world.
The Malecon or promenade stretches for a long ways along the La Paz waterfront. Normally it's filled with joggers, skateboarders, and Mexican families pushing strollers. At times there are international tennis tournaments. There are always festivities associated with Semana Santa and Carnival. Compared to the enormously popular and expensive twin cities of Los Cabos to the south, there are surprisingly few gringos that visit La Paz. I guess that's why we keep coming back. The Malecon is also adorned with many magnificent bronze statues. This one of a whimsical sailor is a favorite. Strung out along the 5 kilometers of Malecon, there are perhaps 20 or more statues like this. So Jim has photographed this one of a busty mermaid and a dolphin at least a dozen times on various trips, and also under different lighting conditions. It's not that you can't find ice cream, cookies, candy, and salsa in Arizona. It's just that Mexicans have a knack for displaying temptation in unusual ways. Look at the stacks of bulk candy packages in the lower right photo, and the huge bottles of hot sauce that I'm contemplating in the center picture. For ice cream, Julieta and Romeo continued to lure us back a couple of times a week, even though it required a 1.5 mile walk from the marina. Each year when it's time to leave La Paz and sail back to San Carlos, we always do so with regret. This year was especially difficult, not knowing when or if the coronavirus would let us return.
But there are plenty of places to explore along the way home. The miles-long beach at Bonanza on the southeast corner of Isla Espiritu Santo is nothing short of spectacular. It's just a day's sail away from La Paz through the San Lorenzo Channel. It has to have more and whiter sand than any other playa in the entire sea. A big advantage to anchoring here is that Bonanza offers great protection from La Paz's notorious nighttime caramel winds that plague the anchorages on the west side of this island. Keep in mind, however, that Bonanza is an open anchorage that's exposed to southerly winds. And even when your boat is tucked in tight at the northern end, it can be rolly if the wind is blowing down the sea. So choose your weather window carefully. The Hook anchorage at the southwest corner of Isla San Francisco is about 40 nautical miles north of La Paz. It has very good protection from the north, lots of room for cruisers, and good hiking and snorkeling. It's a good place to wait out weather that's uncomfortable to sail in. We often find cruising friends there doing exactly that. This year on our way north, we stopped at Puerto Escondido, which is about 15 miles south of Loreto. The marina there has been under new management for several years now and offers many cruising amenities. Slips and mooring balls are available in a protected harbor. They also have a marine store and grocery, repair services, a travel lift, and dry storage. Located at the base of the Sierra de la Giganta, the scenery along this stretch of Baja is breathtaking. Despite the pandemic, the marina staff went out of their way to accommodate the needs of transient cruisers, while taking safety precautions seriously. Weekly mooring and monthly slip rates are moderate, but daily rates are extremely pricey. Nevertheless, if you need a rest stop or provisions, this place should be worth checking out. It's also close to the airport in Loreto, in case adjustments need to be made to your crew. Our shoreside friends kept telling us that we couldn't have been in a better place during the 2020 pandemic, but social distancing on a small boat has practical limits, and eventually we had to return. Fortunately, the staff at Marina San Carlos were able to keep everything running smoothly at our home port. We had reservations for slip and a haul out in early May. Pochteca is now safely in dry storage for the 2020 hurricane season. We are hoping to get back to San Carlos sometime before Christmas to check on her and possibly resume our cruising activities.
And one final reminder before we go, please be sure to look at our handout, Resources for Cruising a Desert Sea, that is part of this presentation, should be an attachment. We've included some additional information on cruising guidebooks, a link to activities and restaurants in San Carlos, information on Sonora, and some more. So finally, we hope to see more club members soon in some of our favorite anchorages down there. Hope you've enjoyed our presentation and you're inspired to check out San Carlos and see what the rest of Mexico has to offer.